Welcome to Kino Society with Owen Shapiro. Today on Kino Society, we are joined by Lesley Barber, a film composer who writes music marked by intelligence and emotional depth. Her distinguished list of credits include Lonergan's Oscar-winning You Can Count on Me, Jerry Rothwell's award-winning documentary How to Change the World, and Kenneth Lonergan's multi-award-winning and Oscar-nominated film Manchester by the Sea, and many more. I'm excited to learn everything about sound composing. Welcome to the show, Lesley.
Thanks, Owen. Lovely to be here today.
So before getting deep into your work as a film composer, I would like to know how you got started in this business. Was being a composer a dream of yours since you were a little kid, or this passion was developed over the years?
Well, I did start writing music at a pretty young age, before I was a teenager, I guess, and it was a really keen interest of mine. And then I studied music in university. I had other interests too, but I studied music in university, and I started working in the theater community and the filmmaking community, and realized that I had a real interest in filmmaking and filmmakers. And the dialogue began quite naturally with various directors who were interested in having me score their work. And one thing led to another, and I was asked to score some feature films, and realized that this was a really great world for me, because the whole collaboration between a filmmaker and a composer is really a unique experience and extremely rewarding.
And what about your education? Do you have anything in terms of that?
Well, when I went to university to study music, I focused a lot on composing. That was my main area of interest, and Renaissance theory. And I also was very into computers and electronic music, and also focused with my piano performance on the work of Bach and Chopin, were real favorites of mine, especially Bach and early music. So it was a pretty diverse arena of learning, and I really started to focus more and more on writing orchestral music, chamber music, and especially hybrid composition right from the beginning that had elements of electronica, beats, all kinds of different things, and of course a live complement of orchestra or chamber music or what have you.
So now let's focus on your work. I'm pretty sure not everyone understands what a film composer is and how important your role is in every film. Could you describe what a film composer exactly does?
That's a great question, because even at customs, when I'm going over the border, it's quite funny trying to explain to customs agent what I do sometimes. And, they'll wonder if I'm a songwriter, or if I choose the music for the film, or if I work with the person who writes the music for the film. But in fact, we do write the music that you hear in the background, everything but the songs pretty much. And sometimes composers write the songs that you hear in films as well. But what we do is we come on board usually at the script stage. A director will send us a script, or a producer will send us something to watch, a rough version of the film, a rough edit of the film. And we'll start a dialogue with the director or the filmmakers in general on the film. But usually, most often, it's a close relationship with the director. And we talk about what kind of music the director is looking for in the film, usually in terms of emotional terms rather than instrumental terms. So rather than say to us, I hear drums and clarinet, or, banjo and programming, it's more like this is the emotional terrain of the film. This is the story I'm trying to tell. This is what's at stake. This is what the characters are longing for. This is the tone and the pacing of the film. So we're looking at the pacing of the cut, the tone of the story, and looking for places where we can elevate the meaning of the story through music.
So do you pick the music after watching the film?
Yeah, again, that's a really super interesting question, and it really depends on the project. So, and there's just various entry points where the composer gets involved. And you know, one of the best places to get involved is at the script stage while the film is usually being shot, or right before it's being shot, where the director has time to introduce the composer to the ideas of the film, the characters of the film, and of course the story and the world that the film is set in. And at that point, you can sometimes composers even have to visit set and supervise some of the moments of the score that are also filmed on screen. So for instance, in my score for Late Night, that was just released about a year ago, Emma Thompson plays a late night talk show host, and she has a band. And so the theme for that late night talk show band had to be written at the script stage so that we could decide on what the band looked like on set, who those instrumentalists were going to be. And so I needed to write a number of cues so that they could be used on set during the shoot. And then of course there's the next stage where a filmmaker has shot their film and they've been thinking about music, but they reach out to the composer while they're editing. And that's a really fun time to get involved. And I guess when I think about that, I think about a film like Manchester by the Sea. And both times I worked with Kenny Lonergan. He was editing the film. I'd written some ideas, but then I could send him drafts of what I was thinking, and he could edit the film to those drafts, and we could begin a really interesting collaboration or conversation between picture and music, and really look at what kind of instrumentation would best serve the story and just the general atmosphere of the film. And then there's, of course, there's another stage that we often come into, which is right at the very end. And maybe they've been working with the director's worked with a composer and hasn't quite gelled, or they've been thinking about music but have delayed the decision for various reasons. And that's when we come in right near the beginning, and we have like 5 or 6 weeks, sometimes as little as 3 weeks, 4 weeks, to write the entire score. And I mean, I prefer to come in a lot earlier, but it could be really fun to come in at the late stage as well.
Right. Actually, speaking of Manchester by the Sea, we had a makeup artist for that movie already on the podcast, Rob Fritz. He did mention that the director was very hands-on with the crew.
Yeah, Kenny's wonderful to work with. He's great at helping you find your voice and find the right voice for the film. And he's also really great at helping you be ambitious for ideas that aren't like the commonplace idea, the something outside the box, so to speak. And I really enjoy working through with him, what ideas we really want to go for. And he's really, I think on both films that we were able to make really bold choices. And he's just a wonderful director to work with.
So I know you are specifically interested in modern electronic programming, loops and effects. Are there any other kinds of composing that exist? And why do you like this one the best?
Well, I also write a lot of scores that are completely acoustic as well, or symphonic. There's a nice blend sometimes of electronic and acoustic, in that you can have a lot of ambiences and atmospheres in your music that I almost think of like the weather of the music. And they're really great at sort of animating the distance between the audience and the character and the stories and the picture, in that they kind of find a lovely space between the sound design and the space of that the audience exists in. So quite often with scores, I do spend quite a bit of time on that ambient, atmospheric overlay of each piece of music. In a score like Manchester by the Sea, it was all completely acoustic. But But then in other scores that I've done, especially a lot recently, there has been an interesting mix of atmospheric programming and of course acoustic. It can be challenging for the composer because when you have live performers playing with your atmospheres and beats and all kinds of things, the preparation for the score needs to be done meticulously so that everything is in sync and lines up and works beautifully in the recording process.
So regardless of some differences in the composing style, could you describe a typical day as a composer working for the film industry?
I don't know if there's a typical day, but I think like a lot of composers, I have sort of play time, edit time, and delivery time. And depending on the process and the kind of expansive time I have and the limitations of time that I have, I might spend a few days or even a few weeks just playing around and finding the right idea. And then there's a time where I have to take these ideas and edit them, either into beautiful pieces that are ready to present and share, or edit them to picture. Because sometimes I'm getting picture in a rough edit stage, and then suddenly a few days later, someone will send me the picture, and it's different, and I have to fix the music to hit the marks and the hits and the beats of the picture the way they were intended. And then there's the delivery of your ideas to the director and producers, and that may or may not include some live players during the demo stage. So my typical day, I really try to have a lot of fun in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I usually really try to focus in something, one idea, and just try to pull out the magic in it, and probably by the next day, have something to deliver and share with whoever I'm working with.
So yeah, you've worked on many kinds of films in the past, and many films in general. Were there any in particular, any types of movies that were more difficult to compose or easier particularly to compose?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I would say for me, it's a really emotional connection quite often to the material. And it's interesting because some of the films I've been involved in, especially ones that are psychological thrillers or horrors even, or harrowing territory, those can be challenging. They're extreme. They can be really rewarding. And I don't mean challenging in terms of bringing technique to the table or meeting the requirements. I just mean in terms of being in that place. I'm sure that for everyone on a film like that, in that world, that it can kind of take you to some interesting places, and creatively and emotionally. And I would say sometimes it can be challenging, especially in psychological horrors, because for your music to be really good, it's just really important to connect with all the points of view in a film as much as you can.
Are there any other genres that have any other specific things that they have to utilize in terms of music?
The time can be challenging, but sometimes it's also a resources sort of question as well that can create a challenging situation. If you are working on a film with a lot of really epic exterior shots, for instance, helicopter shots, drone shots, and you really want a huge expansive orchestral sound, and maybe the resources aren't there, and figuring out exactly how to fill up that same space. And sometimes I'll do that electronically, sometimes I'll work with a kind of combination of orchestral strings and string samples, or sometimes mix in some beautiful stacked vocals to create that lushness. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it each time, and with every film, for sure, there's always a challenge, and it's never the same as the last film.
We worked on 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Well, there was a series that was based on it that Mindy Kaling wrote. That came out last summer. So it was 10 1 hours. Yeah. No, it was an amazing film, right?
The first movie is a very fun movie. I like that one.
Yeah, it's a really great film.
You've participated in many films and series and documentaries. So is composing a movie for a documentary or series any different?
Usually with the series, there's a number of people that you're getting comments from. With an auteur-driven film, you're really quite often just working with the director, which is great, or maybe the director and the producer. With the series, as I just mentioned, quite often there's a number of producers that want to hear your music and then make comments, and so the scheduling is really tight and demands a lot of organization and teamwork. So it's really important to have a fabulous team working with the composer. And then with documentaries, it's really fascinating how the story can shift and the point of view can shift. So right up until the point it's edited. So quite often when I hear about the documentary, I haven't done that many, but the ones that I've worked on, I kind of look at the cast of characters and I look at the story the same way I would it as fiction, but quite often with documentaries, because there's just such an abundance of interviews and footage involved, quite often they can shift the story quite dramatically right up into the end. And also there's usually a lot of music involved underneath voiceover and so on. So it's really interesting to sculpt the music and create themes in that world when everything's moving. It's like the whole thing's a moving target to some extent.
So what are the challenges that you face as a composer, and how do you manage to overcome them? This could be inside your specific world or inside the film industry in general.
I would say that over the last few years, protecting your creative space can be challenging because a lot of the people you're working with their job is to communicate with you and check in with you, and they expect kind of very quick emails and very quick communication, which is great. But I mean, it's important for a composer to also have a few hours where they can really sink into the music at hand and to bring the sensitivity to their music and the emotionality. That is why we can listen to a piece of music 4,000 times. You know, you can think about pieces of music, I'm sure, for yourself that are 3 to 4 minutes long, and you've listened to them over and over and over again. And it's usually because there's something really magical about that piece of music. So I would say that when I'm working on a job, that I try to carve out really early mornings and get up before everyone else, or stay up really late at night, you know, just to find that time. But I would say that's something that's important to protect as a composer, that intimacy with the work and protecting yourself and your time so that you're able to write the best music you can.
So, as you may or may not know, I'm currently doing an internship with a director, and I hope to have a professional career in filming one day.
Oh,
do you have any advice for people like me who want to make it big in the film industry as composers or in general?
I would say maybe, and I mention this sometimes to people who are working with me, or if I'm mentoring someone, is that it's important to focus on your own craft, of course, and to look sideways at what your colleagues are doing and heroes are doing in your own field. But it's also really important to look at yourself as a whole filmmaker, you know, and to understand and to really see as many films as one can, and absorb the moments of cinematography, music, sound, acting that thrill you and move you, and take a second look at how those moments come together. Because I know working with a director, with directors, it's really important to have that awareness and that encyclopedic interaction with the work of the past, so that when they bring up different films or different performances, that you have your own access to that, to those ideas and to those touchstones that they're bringing up to you. So it's sort of a love of me, a love of, be a cinephile as well as as the person that as well as the specific craft that you're undertaking, if that makes sense.
So now that you've built a steady professional career in the film industry as a composer, what's next for you? Are there any projects coming up ahead of you?
Well, as you know, it's kind of there's a bit of a COVID thing happening right now, which is slowing down. It's slowed things down a little bit, but yeah, I'm working again with a director that I worked with a while ago, Stephanie Lang, who directed Irreplaceable You. And then I have a couple of projects that are in early development that I'm coming into at an earlier stage. I'm really excited about those as well.
So finally, where can my listeners find and connect with you?
Yeah, I have access through my website, through my Facebook page, through Insta, through Twitter, all the usual places.
Right. That's all for today. Don't forget you can subscribe to Kino Society on iTunes and Spotify.